The concept of both cope and core, that's create once, publish everywhere, or create once, repurpose everywhere, sounds great, but they sure take a lot of time and strategy work. So are they worth the trouble for podcasters? Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. Are you frustrated about how much time it takes to make your podcast right now? A lot of people are, because we have this thing inside of our head, this collective myth, if you will, that, well, how hard can it be to make a podcast? And I'm not here to tell you how hard it can be to make a podcast. You're a working podcaster. You already know how hard it is to make a podcast or how easy it is to make a podcast. But one of the things that a lot of people struggle to grasp, is how difficult it is to really focus in and make all of the content that is necessary to make a podcast be as great as it possibly can be. I mean, sure, there's the audio that you have to put into, and that means a certain amount of requirement for equipment, certain amount of strategy around how you're going to make the show sound and all that stuff. And this is the effort to put the whole thing together, right? Not only just recording it live, but also the post work and the cleanup and then soundscaping. And so it's a lot of work, and we know. Yeah, well, we often stop there, and we should not. And then there's the video element. Not every podcaster does video, but a lot of them are turning to video now as an option. Many of the clients I speak with say, well, look, I'm already here talking. Why wouldn't I put a video camera on my face? Okay. You can. But now that video, as you know, something has to be done to it. I mean, you just can't say video live done. It takes effort, right? You've got to do some processing to put it someplace. You've got to load it somewhere and then describe it and all of those various things. What about the live video aspect? Not just people like me who use live video tools to help. That's great. Do that. But I'm thinking of other forms of live video that are out there. And more importantly, people who are using live video or thinking about using live video as a way to generate podcast content. Sure, you can do that, but what do you do with all the times you mention to people who show up in the live room, oh, hey, hi, thanks for the hearts, and all that sort of stuff? That means nothing if that's been repurposed somewhere. You got to write all of the app text, all the text that goes inside of the podcast listening apps, no matter what they're listening to, or what they're listening to your show on, Apple Podcast, Spotify, all those things from your hosting company needs you to sit down and write some text. And not just slam something out, although oftentimes people actually do. But that text you write for in-app, it doesn't work on your website. Yet most podcast hosting companies, if not all podcast hosting companies, still like to use all of the stuff you use for your app feed on your website, and that just is not great. Then you also got to make episode artwork. I mean, something's got to be done for each one of your episodes, and if you don't, okay, great, you skipped it, but you shouldn't do that. Episode artwork is important, so you got to make that. Then you got to write all the stuff for your social shares because you want to crow about your episode when it drops. Sure, maybe a day or two afterwards as well. Great. That's all got to be written. What about the newsletter? If you have people subscribe to that, you need to get the content into the newsletter so people are reading a newsletter. But when they read a newsletter, oh, you've got an embedded player in there? Well, that won't work in most newsletter clients, so you can't do that. Newsletter clients also have cutoff points at some point in time, and no one likes clicking that continue to read this message on the web. And then there's audiograms. Those little things that make motion, text, well, they make the audio look better when it gets shared on social media. Now, I'm not necessarily convinced those actually have any value, but a lot of people do use them, and that takes time, energy, and effort to create. All these things we do, that's 9 things I just said right there. Oh, and by the way, I didn't even mention planning or strategy. All that which goes into it. So it's no wonder, with all of those things to do, that people are looking for constantly this system called COPE, or this system called CORE, which again is create once, publish everywhere. That's what most of the hosting companies have done with their systems that you log into. You can go enter your title and your descriptions, and here's your episode, and here's your artwork. Great. Not only will they push that out to the podcast feeds, but they will also, many of them, will let you make a website out of it too. Problem is, it's bad website content. It's just not good content. So there's a problem with that. Create once, repurpose everywhere. Okay, fine. You create it once, but now you start slicing and dicing it, and you make your audiograms, and you pull out things for your social shares. And some of that works, sure. But it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of the stuff that you're utilizing just simply doesn't work. I mean, I mentioned the whole problem with the live video previously. Yet I see a lot of podcasters try to make their content work better. And I get why you want to do that. I get why you want to really work hard, or you really want to work smart, not necessarily hard, to make sure that you're maximizing your effort. You're maximizing your expectations, but you're not. See, what I see most people do who get into this repurposing thought, or this, I'll just write something once and I'll use it in as many places as I can, is they're doing minimum effort, but expecting maximum, expectations. That's it. Minimum effort, maximum expectations. And technology is cool. There are some awesome tools, and I use a lot of awesome tools to help get this content to share as widely as possible. Like things like Buffer are great tools, or any of the other social repurposing. I mentioned the great things that your website provider or your podcast hosting company can provide to help you do things. That's great, because those should take minimum effort. But when you're really creating content, when we're thinking about podcast content, not just the audio, but all the other things that I mentioned in there, it's kind of foolish for us to think that there is a way we can automatically do one thing and have it be perfect everywhere. That's just hard. Everything takes tweaking. Everything takes individual effort on each one to make sure that it's right in those individual places. I love the concept for Cope and Core. I love the mindset for Cope and Core. The idea of creating once. Or maybe a better way to think about that is do all of your creation at once. Not one thing you're creating, but take your creation time all at once. So all those things you need to do, audio, video, live video, in-app text content, full article, episode artwork, your social shares, your newsletter, your audiograms, maybe all of that stuff is created at one time. Individualize where necessary. That's going to take a lot. That's more work. That's not minimum effort anymore. It's effort shifting. Maybe it's maximum effort, but again, if you have maximum expectations, shouldn't you have maximum effort? I understand we want to find efficiencies. There's another E in here. How do we maximize efficiencies? I get we want to do that. But the notion that we can just create one thing and have it work everywhere is ludicrous in podcasting. We might be able to create once or do all of our creation at one time. Something to think about as you go about the rest of your day. While you're out there, do me a favor, find one podcaster and tell them about this show. I would love it if you, as a working podcaster, would tell another podcaster you know about the show to help spread the word. That would be wonderful. I'm going to be breaking down myths about content creation all of this week here on the program, so tell your friends. We shall see where it goes. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. I shall be back tomorrow with yet another podcast, Pontifications. Cheers!